Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise Podcast. I am your host, Dystro, and tonight's episode is another On This Day in Wrestling History. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different, since I'm going to be going to Reddit for some of this. I'm also going to be using the website TJR Wrestling. Shout out to both of those sites for kind of giving us some wrestling history here. But the Reddit post that in particular is this person by the name of Deprice82 on Reddit. They've been doing the Wrestling Observer Rewind stuff, and they've been covering most of '04 at this time. So I'm gonna kind of go over some stuff that went down on this day on April 17th in '04, but it's gonna be on April 19th. So we're gonna be going through TJR Wrestling first on this episode, and on this day in 1994, WCW held their Spring Stampede pay-per-view at the Rosemont Horizon in Rosemont, Illinois, in front of 12,200 fans. And on this show is going to be a kind of a doozy for 1994. Johnny B. Bad, also known as Mark Marrow, defeats Diamond Dallas Page. Lord Steven Regal and Brian Pillman fought to a 15-minute time limit draw for the WCW World Television Championship, meaning Regal retained the belt. The Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags, defeat Cassius Jack and Max Payne in Chicago Street Fight to retain the World Tag Titles. This match was like under 10 minutes long, and it was actually really freaking good. I would actually recommend you go watch that match if you haven't already. Stunning Steve Austin defeated the Great Muta by DQ to retain the United States Championship. The DQ happened when Muta sent Austin over the top rope to the outside, which at the time was illegal in WCW, which that's Bill Watts territory right there. Sting beat Rick Rude to win the WCW International World Heavyweight Championship. Bunkhouse Buck, which is like a person in WCW that was from Buckstort, Tennessee, defeated Dustin Rhodes in a bunkhouse match, a match with just no rules. Vader defeated the Big Boss Man, or called The Boss, by pinfall after a moonsault from the top rope, which that's freaking crazy. And Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat fought to a draw for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. The match ended in a double pin, so the belt was declared vacant. Flair went on to win the rematch on April 21st to regain the belt, which that's Ric Flair for you right there at this time. On this day in 2000, WWF Monday Night Raw was held in Pennsylvania, and the show opened with Chris Jericho taking on Triple H. Before the match, Jericho goaded Triple H into putting the WWF World Championship on the line, and Triple H agreed. Then Jericho announced that he got some protection for the belt and brought out the APA, which is for Rick Bradshaw. During the match, the referee got knocked out, and then Shane McMahon tried to interfere but was chased away by the APA. Earl Hebner ran into the ring to take over refereeing duties and got into a shoving match with Triple H. Jericho took advantage and hit Triple H with a spinning heel kick and then a lionsault and got the pin, with Hebner hitting a fast count, making Jericho the new WWF World Heavyweight Champion. After the match, both referees were brought into the ring and threatened by Triple H and Shane McMahon and Mike Chioda, the original referee, and said it was a fast count by Hebner. The match was overturned and non-official counted as a win for Jericho, and the belt was given back to Triple H. Also on the show, Sky Jihadi won the WWF Light Heavyweight Championship after pinning Dean Malenko. I don't remember this. Plus, it's like one of those things in wrestling history where it's like Jericho won, the world championship from Triple H, but then it got overturned and kind of like boo, and it was kind of a bullshit thing. And plus, this is like after Jericho came in to 2000 and all that stuff. Also, I remember Sky Duhati and Dean Malenko having like really good matches for the light heavyweight championship. On this day in 2001, WWF SmackDown was held in Nashville, Tennessee. The opening match of the night saw Kane lose the Hardcore Championship to Rhino, and then in the main event, the Brothers of Destruction defeat Christian and Edge in no DQ tag team match to win the WWF tag team titles. So he lost one belt, gained another. It's okay. Oh god, this is gonna be a time capsule here. 2007. On this day in 2007, WWE SmackDown was held for the first time in Milan, Italy. On the show, Deuce and Domino, if you remember that tag team, defeated Paul London and Brian Kendrick to win the WWE Tag Team Championships, when ending the reign of London and Kendrick at officially recognized 334 days as champions. If you do not know who they are, I think it's either Deuce or Domino, who was one of the Tongans. I think it's Tangaloa, I think. Which is like one of those things where it's just like a time capsule, sort of thing. But yeah, I kind of remember this back then. I was 9 when that. I was almost 9, or I was 8, about to be 9 that year. And I wasn't really watching wrestling at that time. But it's a whatever. It's one of those like whatever years for WWE at this point. On this day in 2010, FIP Southern Stampede was held at the National Guard Armory in Crystal River, Florida. The main event of the night, Jon Moxley defeated Roger Strong to win the vacant FIP World Heavyweight Championship. It would go to hold on for the next 360 days. FIP is like one of those. Excuse me. FIP is one of those promotions that is like kind of a mixture of like up and coming talent. It's like like where Austin Theory guys start. I know like Moxley, Strong, Homicide. Chris Hero would be there, Punk. This is like kind of like developmental sort of thing in a way. It was some pretty good matches on that. If you guys haven't, excuse me, I apologize for that. So if you guys have not heard of FIP, I would go seek them out. It's like there's some pretty cool like old school stuff from I think maybe like 08, 09, maybe 2010. That was like some pretty good stuff. Okay, this one's gonna be a time capsule too. On this day in 2011, in front of 4,000 fans at the U.S. Bank Arena in Cincinnati, Ohio, TNA held their Lockdown pay-per-view, which I have watched kind of recently. I watched the semi-main to the main. That shows you how much of the show cares about. So we have Max Buck defeating Amazing Red, Brian Kendrick, Chris Sabin, Jay Lethal, Jeremy Buck, Robbie E, and Suicide in an 8-way escape the cage match to become the #1 contender for the X Division Championship. Inc., which, if you guys remember that, excuse me, I am so sorry, guys. Inc., which is Jesse Neal and Channing Moore, defeated Crimson and Scott Steiner, Eric Young and Orlando Jordan, and the British Invasion, which is Magnus and Douglas Williams, in a 4-corner tag team match. That shows you how much they cared about TNA at this point. Put like 4 teams that are like kind of thrown together and all that stuff, and it's just like, okay. Mickey James defeated Madison Rayne by pinfall in a hair versus title match in just 24 seconds to win the Knockouts Championship, but that shows how much they care about the Knockouts at this point. Samoa Joe defeated D'Angelo De Niro, who is formerly the what is his name? Elijah Burke in ECW, if you remember that thing. Matt Morgan defeated Hernandez. Jeff Jarrett defeated Kurt Angle in a Ultra Male Rules 2 out of 3 falls match. First fall was submission, second fall was pinfall, and then last fall was escape the cage. And then Sting defeated Anderson and RVD in a 3-way match, which was like 8 minutes, which is crazy. And then then Lethal Lockdown, which was Fortune, which was Christopher Daniels, James Storm, Kazarian, and Robert Roode defeated Mortal, which is Abyss, Bully Ray, Matt Hardy, and Ric Flair. Okay. Um, I don't know why I just did that, but it was just one of those things where it's like it shows you how much they cared about TNA at this time, because like they have it's just some like random bullshit matches and all that stuff, which could be just TV matches at this point. Um, but it's like the Four Corners tag team match. It's like that could have been for like weekly TV. Um, and it, this is like a whatever time for Joe at this time too. But just sad to see. Okay, go moving on. On this day in 2017, the Monday Night Raw main event between The Big Show and Braun Strowman went to a no contest with a top row superplex resulting in the ring collapsing. I do remember this because I watched this live. Um, and it was like one of those things where it's like you kind of knew that the ring was going to be collapsing because, like, I mean, look at these two fuckers, you know. I mean, yeah, it was actually kind of cool. Okay. On this day in 2020, if you want to go back to that time, on this day in 2020, on the Friday Night SmackDown, the main event was for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship titles, which was a triple threat match between Big E, Jey Uso, and The Miz. Big E pinned The Miz to win the title for his team. And that kind of actually shows you like how much they cared about the tag division at that time too. Because like if you think about like 2016, 2017, it's like tag team wrestling at that time was like really freaking good. Which it's still good to this day, but it's just like it just drives my it just grinds my gears like how much they do not give a fuck about tag team wrestling nowadays. So with that being said, we have two noble birthdays here. Two noble birthdays. Today is Bandito's birthday, which is happy birthday, Bandito, and the late great Roddy Piper, R.I.P. to the Hot Rod. Yeah, that's one of those like tough pills to swallow sort of thing. But Roddy Piper is one of those like people that like he can. How should I put this? It's like he's one of those people that you want him to back you up in a fight, like in a bar fight and all that stuff. I mean, same goes with like Bandito and all that stuff, but Bandito, if I can speak today, Bandito is one of those people where it's just like he's just crazy athletic. He's just a crazy luchador. Um, so many like so much potential for this kid too. He's ROH champion right now, like a two-time ROH champion right now. So, with that being said, I'm gonna go into the Reddit post and all stuff, and I will see you in a little bit. So some of these stories or articles, I'm gonna like just pick and choose from here and there. But let's just start with this one. The New York Post ran a story about TNA's potential television deal with Fox Sports Net. An unnamed FSN spokesperson was quoted saying the deal isn't done yet, but should be soon, and they are expected to start in June with an afternoon time slot. FSN is different from a traditional network, cable network, and is more of a collection of regional stations. Most FSN stations only do good ratings when airing major sports events in their local region. Back in 2000, Paul Heyman had talks with FSN and could have gotten a TV deal with them for ECW, but he felt it wasn't a strong enough deal and would only cost them more money, so he didn't take it. As it stands now, TNA is losing an estimated $30,000 per week, which is crazy. They've made some adjustments, taping 2 shows per taping, so every other weekly pay-per-view is taped rather than live, and other budget cuts, but without television. TNA is never going to break even, but if they get to TV, they'll have to have a hit. Otherwise, the cost of weekly shows, TV production, etc., will probably cost them more than they're ever losing now, which is basically what Heyman realized would happen with ECW. And that's why he passed on the deal in 2000. And this is actually quite true because TNA at this time in '04, they were kind of dying a little bit. They were just kind of like, it's like one of those things, like it's like kind of like writing on the wall. And this was like 2 years into the business at this point. Like the weekly pay per views were like $9.95. Some of the talent was kind of, they had to get paid and all that stuff, so they were taking other bookings. And luckily, Panda Energy would kind of save them from the detrums and shit. Which is shout out to Panda Energy. Um, but let's kind of keep going here. The current plan for TNA to tape their shows at Universal Studios in Orlando, which is part of a deal Jimmy Hart put together for them. Positives that are a Universal Studios show would mean free tickets to guests and would guarantee a packed house, which they can instruct to cheer or boo as they see fit, just like WCW did in the early '90s. The bad news is, much like the old WCW Universal shows, those crowds aren't typically real fans who follow the product, and it's basically just filming wrestling for an audience of Universal Park guests who only took free tickets so they can get out of the sun and sit down for an hour or two. They will also have to pay for transportation to Orlando, as many of TNA's wrestlers live in the Nashville/Atlanta areas. Which is one of those things where it's like, I remember on the Deadlock podcast, they were talking about like Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt were like, handing out free tickets and stuff for people to like just come to the show. And they were just like, like, hey, want to come see the Blue Man Group if you want to come see wrestling and all that stuff too. um which is kind of just like one of those things where it's like, man, it's like, if they didn't get off the ground, I don't know if like TNA would be still around today, because like, it's been around since '02. It's 23 years at this point. um but yeah, that's just crazy. It's just crazy at this point. This one's going to be a kind of interesting little article here. Dr. Dev Steve Williams did not undergo throat cancer surgery last week as previously planned. He went to go in for the surgery and was told they would have to remove his entire larynx, which is the voice box. Naturally, he sought a second solution or opinion, and that doctors suggested chemo, radiation therapy treatment first. So he's going to start with that instead of the surgery. If it doesn't work, then the larynx removal would be next, which is similar to what Golden Soley had done shortly before his death. Williams is said to be in great spirits given the situation and being treated at one of the best cancer hospitals in the country, MD Anderson Hospital in Houston, same place Bruce Pritchard's wife had been receiving treatment. I did not know that. It's like one of those things where it's like, JR would probably talk to you about that, like talking your fucking ear off. But yeah, like, I mean, like, look, I was not, a huge dirt sheet guy at this time either. I was like about to be 6 around in '04. So yeah. So this one's gonna be interesting. This is mostly around like TNA stuff too. The relationship between TNA and ROH has fully collapsed, and TNA is pulling all of its contracted talent from ROH shows, including stars who are already advertised for upcoming ROH shows this week. Which, if you guys don't already know, during that time, TNA and ROH were kind of like on good terms, good relationship. Had AJ Styles, Austin Aries, what am I thinking? I'm doing a brain fart here. Just like ROH talent in general, and then they would have like a talent exchange. Like have like Roderick Strong, for AJ Styles, and then like AJ for Austin Aries and whatever. So this stems from the meeting Gabe Skopolsky had with TNA, in which TNA had asked him to sign a document stating that Rob Feinstein is no longer with the company. The document stated that Sapolsky would be held personally liable for any damages TNA might incur from their relationship with ROH if it turned out Feinstein is still involved. Sapolsky, who doesn't have any ownership interest in ROH, refused to sign it and offered it to hand it off to the money guys, Doug Grinchey and Kerry Sulkin, who is kind of the money guy. He was kind of the money guy in the dying days of ROH before Tony Khan picked it up. Well, Gentry signed the letter and sent it back to TNA, but TNA insisted that Sulkin had to sign as well. Upon advice from his lawyer, Sulkin refused to sign based on the personal liability wording. So at that point, TNA and ROH agreed to end the partnership, and both sides put out a joint statement regarding it, hoping to end the story there without any further controversy. Well, that really didn't work. Within hours, the story exploded. Bob Ryder, who was one of the guys that was like kind of like big on like AJ Styles and like Chris Harris and James Storm and all that stuff, like some of them guys coming in. Bob Ryder got a copy of the document and posted it on his website, implied that Sulkin's refusal to sign it was because Feinstein is secretly still involved with the company. Whether that's true or not, TNA is weary. Given their own history with dishonesty, Dave isn't surprised. He talks about how Jerry and Jeff Jarrett have repeatedly and frequently lied to other wrestlers and TNA employees about Vince Russo's involvement in TNA. In fact, even Bob Reiner's own investment in early TNA was a secret to a lot of people as well, because he has a lot of enemies in the company. Plus, the Jarretts lied to everyone from the beginning about how TNA is being funded and didn't reveal the $1.6 million investment they got from Health South in 2002 that helped launch the company, initially claiming it was entirely funded with family money. Point being, the Jarretts have been in business for decades, are experienced liars themselves, and are prepared to take ROH at its word on this. But then like some of the names that were pulled from ROH was like AJ Styles, Daniels, Jerry Lynn, Sunday Dutt, Amazing Red, Raven, Chris Jericho, and Tracy Brooks, among others. CM Punk was really used by TNA as of late, and was kind of like their shining star in ROH. Had like this big huge ROH run and all this stuff. And yeah, it was kind of like one of those like, it was just like one of those things where it's like TNA at that point, it's like they had some good, I guess, good talent come over from ROH, but then it's like with the contract, like, being personally reliable, it's like, it's like kind of makes you think like, well, like if I'm going to be personally reliable, like why am I like signing this then? Yeah, it's just like one of those things where it's like, if what if sort of thing, you know what I'm saying? So this next little snippet here is about Jim Ross. Jim Ross is being promoted to Executive Vice President of Business Strategies, which leads to the long-expected move of John Laurinaitis. The Budokan. Oh, John Laurinaitis. People power. John Laurinaitis is taken over as head of talent relations. That's all Dave knows at press time, but promises he'll have more next week. It says this is going to be a pretty interesting change in WWE. To say this had long-term ramifications, to put it mildly. Yeah, and it's crazy that John Laurinaitis was like head of talent relations, because like I think like he was moving up or something, and then JR was like, yeah, I'll take over business strategy. I'll just take over. It's like if you cast your minds back to New Legacy, on the Wrestling Empire like booking thing, like when they were over as JR and stuff, they got Dr. Death, and he basically blew all their money on Dr. Death. That's kind of like what I was thinking there. So this next one is about like WWE being in kind of bad shape here. February was a bad month for business in WWE. March, on the other hand, was nothing short of spectacular. Needless to say, WrestleMania 20 was doing record numbers in just about every way is the reason. Why is the reason why, but even aside from that, house show business was up, TV sellouts were due to Rock and Foley being around, Raw's TV ratings were up, SmackDown's went down, so on and so forth. Obviously, this is all due to the build up towards WrestleMania, but now that Austin, Goldberg, and Brock are gone, Angle is injured, and we're in the post WrestleMania summer months, business is likely about to hit a skid. But no matter how you slice it, March was a huge month for WWE, and that is true. WrestleMania 20 was kind of like one of those draws that was like it's because of like the main event with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit. Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle having a good match. The WrestleMania 20 card itself, like it's got some good undercard matches. But the two like world title matches alone was like I guess like price of admission. But yeah, that's kind of like it's not bad. So this next article was they almost had a WWE versus TNA match in Puerto Rico. Carly Colon, who is Carlito, who is signed to WWE and currently working LVW, went back to the island to work a WWC show and was scheduled to face Abyss. However, at the last minute, WWE faxed a letter to WWC refusing to allow Colon to do the match. Dave kind of understands basically how this is how things have always been in past wrestling wars, but he also thinks it's kind of petty and proves that no matter how small they are, WWE actually considers TNA to be competition. Colon hasn't been on TV and is completely unknown to 99.9% of the WWE audience. Plus, it's not like anyone here would have ever seen the match. But alas, anyway, WWC switched the match, and that's the end of the story. Which that would have been kind of crazy if we got Carlito versus Abyss on that WWC show in Puerto Rico. So this next little article is about Goldberg doing an interview. Goldberg had confirmed a rumor that WWE had asked him to stop using the jackhammer as his finish, wanting him to use the spear instead. He said he thought that was an asinine request that made no sense, and even said it's one of the things that made him decide to leave. He said that he would still be willing to listen if WWE came to him with a new offer, and mentioned he'd love to work with Austin at next year's WrestleMania, but that's about it. Also, he said he'd love to work with Sting. He said that he didn't enjoy his WrestleMania 20 match, which was fucking crazy. Went I think like 10, 12 minutes. I think like you could have cut that shit in half. Because like it was Goldberg and Lesnar, and they were both on their way out at this point. Too. Um, He said he didn't enjoy his WrestleMania 20 match because he really wanted to try to have a good match with Lesnar and felt like the fans refused to let them even try. Well, that's why. He talked about his various injuries. He refuses to take pile drivers or back suplexes because of his neck. He said he was the hardest person to work with within the WWE. He said the hardest person to work with in WWE was Mark Henry because of his size, and the easiest was Shawn Michaels. He admitted he was upset about WWE taking the title off of him at Armageddon and implied that a lot of promises were made to him when he signed to WWE weren't kept. He was asked about TNA and simply said he had never seen the product, so he couldn't comment on them, but there's people working there that he'd like to kill. He didn't name names, but Dave said it's Russo and Bob Ryder. At the end of the interview, he got in one last jab at Chris Jericho. Even asked why they didn't get along. Goldberg responded, "Because we didn't see eye to forehead." Ooh, that's some Goldberg shit right there. So there was some like other stuff about like K1, which is like kind of like a boxing sort of like MMA thing. Um, and then there was no plans to revive ECW at this point because it's been discussed in the past, and when Confidential got canceled last week, it got people talking again. But that's not in the cards. Velocity will be moving to an earlier time slot on Saturday night, and Confidential will be replaced by a new show on Sunday mornings called WWE Experience. It will be a kid-friendly recap show, basically, which is Fucking crazy. Talking about WWE still. Brian Christopher has been re-signed by WWE. Will return to as Grandmaster Sexay again. David is not sure about this move. Christopher was fired from WWE in 2001 when he tried to cross the Canadian border during a WWE tour with drugs in his possession. Dave is fine with people like Eddie Guerrero, who got fired for drug abuse or drug use, and then went out there, got clean, busted his ass on the indies to get back to WWE. But Christopher has been in TNA for the last year or so and has been absolutely awful and not good shape. So he's not sure what the deal is here. Favorite to Lawler, I'm assuming. Christopher returned on Raw this week and looked unimpressive, getting squashed by Kane in 2 minutes. Anyway, this doesn't last very long, but we'll get there. And then it goes over kind of like the notes from like the SmackDown that month, and then Raw that month. So then talking about Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit did several interviews this week, and all of them asked about the whole not being built from Canada thing. Benoit tried to downplay it by saying he resides in Atlanta now, which is true, so that's not a big deal to him. He said he does not plan to move back to Edmonton when he retires. He said he didn't believe he was actually winning the title at WrestleMania until Triple H tapped out. Dave says there was a lot of people in the locker room who felt the same way. They knew Benoit was winning, but they all expected Michaels to take the loss because actually no one actually thought Triple H would be putting over Benoit as strongly as he did. He said the three men called most of the match in the ring and had a vague outline of what they planned to do. And in the last few minutes, felt like slow motion to him. Talked about his time in WCW and said that some of the top guys, naming Hogan in particular, wouldn't acknowledge him when he said hello to them. And that's how Hogan treated people who weren't main eventers. He also said he came close to retiring in 2001 after his neck surgery, which is kind of true. I kind of remember when his neck surgery kind of fucked up his career a little bit. Which he almost retired then. And then kind of was talking about more and more stuff. But here's a little ending on a little high note here. Orlando Jordan and Mark Jindrak got a lot of praise backstage recently. Apparently, they've been working house show matches together. Instead of rushing out of the building to get to the next town like everyone else did, they eventually went to management to ask for tapes of their matches so they could study them and tried to see where they could improve, which earned them big brownie points, which is kind of cool in retrospect. But that is all I am going to be doing for this day in wrestling. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. It's kind of good to look back on some old school stuff, both on the TJR Wrestling website and on the Reddit post through DePriest82. Go check them out, because DePriest was doing a lot of Wrestling Observer rewind stuff from 91 to 01, or went to 02, and then went to 03. Now they're doing 04 and all that stuff, which is kind of cool. But yeah, go check them out if you want to learn some more wrestling stuff, and if you want to just go back into a time capsule, But I will end this on a good note. If you guys made it to the very end of this episode, we do really appreciate it. If you like this episode, please make sure to follow us on all social medias in the link tree in the description below, which will take you to our Reddit page, Instagram page, Twitter, my gaming YouTube channel, and I think this episode is going to be kind of a simple plan kind of night, if you want to call it that. Simple plan. We're going to do Didn't Ruin My Life. And it's off of the Simple Plan's kind of latest album, if you want to call it that. Yeah, Simple Plan, Didn't Ruin My Life, and that is it. And I will see you guys next Thursday for another episode of Reckless Paradise Podcast. Peace. Have a good one, everybody.